I asked you a question at the beginning, and it was asking how do investigators classify a software, a computer software, actually, computer program to be malicious software. So trivially, actually, we can answer by recognizing the payload, what the software, what the computer program do, or what the computer program does. Sorry. So if his intention to actually if its content, its yes, payload is a payload is classified to be payload, so it is having an intention for a malicious behavior, so it is a malware. So based on the answer is based on the payload. We have to analyze the content, the tasks, what the computer program does in order to recognize whether he is having a payload or not. When yes, so it is a malicious software. Otherwise, it's a simple computer program. Payload means a process that this computer program will do, and frequently this process would be actually a negative process. Means whether to data, to delete, to conceal, to alter, to modify, to share, open a fence, a hole in a fence, actually, something like that. So all of those behaviors, they are sorts of payload content. So payload behavior, payload, let's say, result, let's say, yes. Malicious software. As per first definition of what is a malware, actually, it is a computer program that has to do something. Actually, it is related to uh, digital environment. That's not just came in to the digital environment. Yes, whether it is because the reference it is saying computer, but even a mobile device is considered, because your mobile device, the smart mobile devices of today, they are considered to be running on top of an operating system, whether it is the whatever the operating system in question. And if the considered program, which is classified as malware, do break the CIA, the very famous triad, security triad, the CIA, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, or one of them, all of them, or one of them, related to a resource, so or related to an activity, so process or procedure, so it is classified as malware at that time only. We classify the malware, if you remember very well, actually, to three groups: viruses, trojans, and worms. And they differ the one from the other based on their payload, because they are all to exploit the vulnerabilities and utilize them for the target, to achieve the target. There are differences absolutely, and those differences they classify whether a malware is a virus, or a malware is, or malicious software is a worm, or a malware or malicious software is a Trojan. So based on the payload, how they behave, what they do, their capabilities, we classify them into one of the groups. There are so many, and there is a long list of examples in each category, and we are not here to classify to see the examples. We classify them, yes, and we recognize what are they, yes, and how they are being actually classified as malicious software. This is the purpose. So because even if we want to try to list the list of the recognized viruses, for example, only, we will have a long list enough to waste days and maybe weeks of reading only. So it is not here to list the examples of the virus. We may see examples, yes, but the concern here how to classify them, how they are classified into this group or the other, from a computer program to a malicious software, or from a computer program to a malware, and another from a malware to one of the categories we were discussing. So let's have a list of examples of, let's say, malware. Yes, malware. Yes. But here we are going to define the terminology that that it defines those examples here. Those are examples for sure. Those are examples only. But those examples, they are only sort of the security terminology that you have to recognize very clearly. Starting with the word virus. A virus is a computer program, full stop. We know that a virus is a computer program because it does a process inside the computer. From the properties of a virus that it do or it does, it touches itself into a program, computer program, within the computer itself, within the same computer only. A worm, it has the capability to propagate, travel across the plant or framework by itself without touching into a file or into an email or something like that. No, by itself it travels across the network. A worm. Logic bomb, it's based on the logic. Here we talk about a computer program that is controlled by time mainly. There have to be actually an event, a trigger to cause the bomb, the logic bomb to explode. Mainly we talk about the time. For example, if midnight is sharp, so the program gets executed. So the program is based on the time. Midnight will be executed. So the logic bomb will be exploded at midnight, whatever the content is. So we are saying that it would be actually exploded. This is just a sort of exaggeration, but it is to actually, yes, get exploded, but logically in terms of, yes, digital environment. Logic bomb, it is to be executed. Why? Because there is a sort of a malware in background residing without being noticed. So because if the antivirus detects it, it will delete it. It will delete it. Or if the computer user recognizes it, this logic bomb, also it will delete it. The computer user will delete that. But because of the availability of a non-recognized, let's say, computer program available in the background, that is considered to be logic bomb. The available background solution is the backdoor. The backdoor. A backdoor, it's actually a sort of a computer program that is available within a platform computer. Here we say that it is compromised. Why? Because it allows remote access. It gives the chance to the attacker, the owner of this backdoor, to access the computer where the backdoor is remotely. Mobile code is a sort of, yes, computer program, but it is to be compatible with different platforms. What does it mean? It means it is to be considered a mobile code if it is running on all the Android computer, all the Android based mobiles. For example, it will not run on Windows 10 computers. It will not run on Ubuntu or Linux computers. Why? Because it's not compatible. So it is heterogeneous. It is to be only moving across this dedicated type of platforms. The router kit, the auto router kit, actually, it's a scenario via which it's a computer program still that generates copies, let's say, of a virus. In the sense of you open your flash disk, for example, and you find a virus. Somehow, you delete it, and after one day, or after 1 hour, or whatever, after a while, you insert the flash disk again, the same flash disk, and you find the same virus again. You delete it. And again, whenever you insert the flash disk, you find the same virus that you already deleted. How? It is coming back. Because you did not delete the source of the virus. The virus is a copy, is an instance that an outer router has generated it for you. This outer router generates viruses and spreads them in all parties within the same framework. Spammer, also we may talk about it as a flooder. This is a computer program that sends unsolicited, or let's say non-legal or non-legitimate emails to different parties. Here the email is a sort of a message to be sent, not mandatory to be email as the email we recognize, because even sending a request to bind or to connect is a message. To send thousands and millions of those same example of let's say connection requests, it's a spammer, the one who did that for the purpose of flooding the victim, rendering him incapable of replying to legitimate requests. Keyloggers, as per the word, actually, it is one of the example of the spyware. The keyloggers, it's a sort of, it's one of the spyware malware classified to be spyware. Why? Because it spies on computer users. It saves the keystrokes, the keyboard keystrokes, and shares them later on with the attacker, or remote destination. Means if your computer is infected with a keylogger, you would not be aware of the keylogger in your computer. It will not give you a hint. This is the first thing. And any application you open, he records that. You open Microsoft Word, you open the browser, you open any other program, he records that. And all what you type would be actually saved. There is a capability, because you may say that I'm going to type, for example, 50,000 words. Will he record that? Actually, there are potentials to record that. Yes, there are potentials, because the way how those keyloggers work, they immediately send what they capture. They do not wait for a long time if there is a connectivity. But if there is no connectivity, they would save all what they can. It depends. There are circumstances. Keyloggers. A sort of a sophisticated, let's say, tool, which is the rootkit. This sophisticated tool, it is hard to detect and hard to delete. It's almost cannot be deleted. The rootkits, they are sort of computer programs that they infect the kernel level. What does mean kernel? It means it's the layer down the operating system, in between the hardware and the operating system. There is a software there. It's at the level of the ROM that controls the peripherals, controls the in-out flow from the hardware to the operating system, and vice versa, from the operating system to the hardware. This kernel, if it is infected with a malware, we talk about a rootkit that has infected this layer. It is to give actually the attackers the chance to hack the root level of the given question, let's say, of the given device. We were talking about the logic bomb and the backdoor. A backdoor or a logic bomb, actually, it is not beneficial as much as when we talk about hundreds and thousands of logic bombs or backdoors. Means every computer equipped or hacked and injected with a backdoor, so it is a logic bomb. It is holding a logic bomb, and that computer that holds a logic bomb that is named zombie, because an attacker would do his attack to inject his backdoor in as many as he can of computers. He will not be taking the care of the intention to insert or to inject his malware in one computer. No, the attacker will take the intention from the beginning to compromise as many as computers he can. Every single compromised device means every single device with a backdoor or a logic bomb, it is said a zombie. Because the group of zombies, they generate a botnet. The group of zombies, they do generate a botnet. botnet شبكة روبوتات Akabot. One of the names that you can give to a zombie. One bot. The payload actually is the content that a malware, not the virus or the worm or the Trojan, all of them, the malware in general, the malicious software, has to do, the process to do. Crimeware is the utilities used to do the crime, to do a crime actually. And this crimeware, it might include also not only the payload or the program to execute, but also the way how to propagate from a machine to another, like the worm, for example. We said the worm that it propagates within a framework by itself. So how it propagates by itself. But all of them, they are examples. They are considered to be a crimeware. Examples, whatever. Advanced persistent threats. This is sort of a backdoor that is available in a compromised device, gain access without consent, persistent enough to say that, to lead you to think that it is deleted or let's say dead or something like that, but it is asleep until this APT feels the time come and would execute his payload. Because of this, it is persistent. Also, it is a sophisticated computer program. It acts in a smart way. It behaves and it moves and it travels in a smart way. Yeah, okay, let's do some definitions. Let's present some definitions. A virus actually, it is a sort of a computer program that has a payload to execute, and the payload is yes, a malicious content, no more no less. And this malicious content is classified to be malicious. Why? Because since it is a computer program, how we classify that it is malicious? Because if it does any harm to any party, so it is a malicious content. It does any harm. What does it mean? It deletes or it hides or conceals or something like that. So it is a harm. Thus, it is considered to be a malware. And here, to classify that this malware is a virus, so what does this virus do? We cannot limit the way, but as per examples only. So capabilities what the virus can do, and as per the payload, usually the virus would conceal, would hide, would yes, delete, and so on like that. Conceal, hide, delete what? Data. For the concern of the propagation, remember the virus does not propagate in a framework. Rather than that, it attaches itself into a program. Yeah, so a virus, in order to be executed, there have to be actually a machine where it runs. So it has to infect the machine. Then after there have to be actually a trigger. What does that mean? Cause to launch this virus. If there is no cause, nobody touched the virus in a computer, it will not affect anything. So the trigger has to be seen. Otherwise, the virus will not run. If the trigger is not there, the virus will not run. And once the virus has run, under any circumstances, what happens? The payload will be executed. If the virus has been launched, so the payload will be actually executed at that time. The virus, since we said that it has the capability to attach itself into a program, so a program that is infected, with a virus, the program fully, if it is actually invoked, so the virus also would be invoked, and then after executed. In the sense of, if we open the program that has a virus in it, injected or infected with a virus. So if the user later on tries to open that computer program, which is infected with the virus, at the same time, the virus would be actually launched. So, okay, example of a virus. This is a sort of C sharp, or sorry, Delphi here, or Pascal program, whatever. Yeah. So we will be discussing the let's say here this compression of a virus. Why? Because we see how it gets propagate, how it touches itself into the computer program to propagate with the computer program. We discuss it just in a way, but we can discuss it right away in order to clarify it at the same time with the definitions we defined earlier. We have actually a computer program that has a task to do, actually, which is here in this example. I have a file, for example, a process one, P1. So this P1 has actually a task to do. In this case, actually, it has an ID. It has, let's say, a resource to point to, no more, no less.
Doctor,
Yes,
I have a question.
tell Huda.
Uh, for example, in this compression virus, how we know what's the type of virus?
There is no actually question to come to you. What is the type of the virus? It can ask you example of a virus, but it can ask you a type of a malware. They come back. A type of a malware. A malware to be classified as a virus, a worm, a Trojan based on the payload. But the type of the virus, no. It's as I said at the beginning, it's a long list of virus that we cannot even delimit. And daily we can find different models and different types. And as users, you can generate as many viruses as you can based on your knowledge and intellectual capability. So, what is the type of the virus? You cannot have actually. It is not good to have such a question. And once you are having it, you have to specify the components of a virus, no more or less, which are the here the payload. And let me give you the example here. We were passing through. Yes, here the payload, the trigger, and the way how to execute the mechanism to launch the payload, to execute the payload, the infection machine or mechanism or engine, whatever. Uh, Based on that, we say that it is a virus. But what is a virus? It's a computer program that has to execute a payload. It can attach itself into a program. It does not propagate within a framework. It does not hide itself and trick the receiver to access the machine because already it does not propagate in the framework. So a virus is sort of a computer program. We do not ask questions saying, give me the types of the viruses. Types of malware, maybe. And they're giving you three groups, which are the virus, the malware, the worm, and the Trojan. Three groups. Under the virus, we have so many and a long list of examples. Under the worms, we have a long list of examples. Under the Trojans, we have a long list of examples. But the three of them, they do have a payload to execute. Worm does not need a trigger to launch. A worm does not need a trigger to launch. What does it mean? It means the worm, if a computer is, let's say, infected with a worm, so the worm will travel by itself from a file to another, from a resource to another, from a device, a computer to another, and so on. The worm. The virus, no. The virus, no. Needs a trigger because the virus needs a trigger. So do not expect to have a question asking you what are the types of viruses. No. Because such a question, it is long enough to make you fail. Fail in answering means you cannot delimit easily, at least. It has a payload, it has a trigger to cause the launch of the payload, and it has the, let's say, the way how the content, the payload will be executed, the infection machine or mechanism, or let's say engine. The example we see here is sort of example only. It is not actually a standardized preview, but it's sort of an example only. So whatever. I'm not even gonna talk to you about that. So the process one here, actually it is infected with a malware. So if we talk about a resource to share, so everything will be shared, even the infected part. So the infected process will be shared, and it will carry with it, let's say here, the computer virus, the CV here is a computer virus, let's say a compression virus, whatever. Here is a computer virus or compression virus. It is a sort of a computer program to attach itself into a process. It is a legitimate process, but once infected means that there is a computer, let's say virus, or let's say here in this example compression virus, being attached to that process. Later on, it will be shared so the same way. So the receiver, let's say at the end of the day, the second party where the process has to end in, it would be actually seen along with the compression virus or this computer virus. Because here an affected process with the kind of the compression virus, to the computer it would be seen as a standalone process. It will not, the computer program, sorry, the computer processor will not say this is a virus and this is a process and both of them they are together. No, no, no. It will see only a one process. The virus will integrate itself, will inject itself into the one process or whatever the process in question to be touched and shared. So the technique used here, it will hide this compression virus or this computer virus from being detected by the processor level or by the antiviruses. Classification we can do. We can classify the virus based on their tasks, based on the, let's say, payload. The first classification utility is the target, what the virus targets. If they are targeting the operating system, if they are targeting the kernel, if they are targeting software applications, so system applications or software applications, whatever. So based on the target, what the malicious here program in this example, the virus attack or target. If we have, for example, 10 viruses, they are all of them targeting the kernel. So all of them they are rootkits. If we have, for example, n malware, they are sorry, or viruses more specifically, and all of them they are attacking the boot sector. The boot sector is the MBI, master boot record. It's the boot. It's a sector, the first sector in the hard disk that is being used to launch an operating system, or let's say yes, to launch an operating system. So if this boot sector is infected, so the full operating system will fail. Only one sector has been infected with the virus. The full environment will be actually infected easily by concealment, in the sense of a virus would conceal data, hide it. So if we have a list of viruses that they do conceal whatever file or resource, if they do the same thing, a list of the let's say of the of those viruses do the same thing, so they are belong to the same, let's say, group, which is the concealment group. They are viruses to conceal data, to hide means in this sense. The very famous macroviruses, and we saw that with the example also in the computer security lab or laboratory, and we said that those are actually technologies built on top of the use of the VBA, Visual Basic for Applications, and mainly it is related to the Microsoft Office pack tools only. I mean, do not expect to find, for example, Firefox being infected with a macrovirus. No. A macrovirus will run only on top of the Microsoft technology. It means Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Infopad, Publisher, any Microsoft Office pack solution. The macros, they are sort of VBA, Visual Basic for Application programs. They might be utilized to generate small solutions or big solutions. But those actually, let's say VBA-based solutions, programs which are viruses, they are classified as viruses because of their behavior, what they do. Otherwise, they are not classified as viruses. An email virus means it's a virus that attaches itself into an email program, like the the Outlook, the Microsoft Outlook, and this Microsoft Outlook is one of the on-premise here computer that we might utilize or to be utilized, whatever, by whom, to share, to flood emails. For all concerns, whatever the virus is, there have to be actually a countermeasure, list of countermeasures in plural, starting with the third-party solution, starting with the third-party application to install, or list of applications or appliances to install. Uh, and in all cases, actually, in order to finalize this countermeasure, you have to, you as an owner, let's say digital security expert, cybersecurity expert, you have to detect that there is a virus. You have to detect and you have to determine that there is a problematic view. Then after, identify it, where and how it is happening, in order to know what is the virus or what is the virus. Was identified, thus you can remove. And here the removal here actually it is advised to go for the auto router search to delete, because if the auto router is still there, whatever you delete, it would be generated again. The auto router will generate all of them. This is a realistic uh, preview. Any questions, please, here at this level? If you hear your name, please say yes. If you hear your name, please yes, please.